The moment the email popped up on my screen, I felt my stomach drop. It was from Human Resources confirming the promotion decision for the Director of Client Services position at Horizon Advertising right in the heart of downtown Chicago. I had poured 5 straight years into that company, climbing every rung with late nights and flawless campaigns. Yet here was the news that shattered it all. When I walked into the glass-walled conference room 10 minutes later, my legs felt like lead, but I forced a confident smile. Linda, my direct boss, sat at the head of the long table, flanked by 2 other executives, her face already set in that professional mask I had seen too many times. "Amber, we reviewed every candidate thoroughly, and we have decided to move forward with Mark for the role," she said, her tone even, but her eyes flicked away from mine for a split second. Mark. The guy who joined 2 years after me, and whose biggest win was a campaign that barely broke even while mine had brought in millions. "Why?" I asked, keeping my voice level even as my pulse hammered in my ears. Linda leaned back and folded her hands. "Your numbers are strong, Amber. There is no question about that. But after the company retreat last month, when you shared about your relationship with Amaya, we have received feedback from key clients. They value a certain traditional image, and we simply cannot afford any perception issues right now." The room went silent except for the low hum of the air conditioning. So this was it. Not my track record, not my leadership, but the fact that I was a lesbian and I had finally stopped hiding it. I felt heat rise in my cheeks, but I swallowed hard, refusing to let tears form. "This is discrimination, Linda, and everyone in this room knows it," I said, standing up slowly. She sighed and shook her head slightly. "It is business, Amber. I am sorry, but the decision stands." I walked out without another word, my heels clicking sharply on the polished floor as whispers followed me down the hallway. Back at my desk, I grabbed my phone and dialed Amaya, my hand shaking so badly I almost dropped it. "Babe, they passed me over," she answered on the second ring, her voice warm like always. "For what?" "The promotion." "Because of us, because I told them about you at the retreat," I blurted out, the words tasting bitter. There was a pause, then her soft exhale. "That is bullshit. Come home right now. We will figure this out together." I left the office early that day, the first time in years, without clearing it with anyone. The drive to our apartment in Lincoln Park felt endless, every red light giving me too much time to replay Linda's words. Had coming out been a mistake? I had felt so free that weekend at the retreat, finally saying out loud that Amaya was my partner, the woman I wanted to build a life with. Now that freedom seemed to have cost me everything I had worked for. When I walked through the door, Amaya was already there, her dark curls tied back, and a pot of coffee brewing on the counter. She pulled me into a hug without saying anything at first, just holding me tight until the tension in my shoulders eased a little. "You did nothing wrong," she whispered against my hair. "They are the ones who are small-minded." We sat on the couch for hours, talking it through, her hand never leaving mine. She reminded me of all the nights I had come home proud of my wins, how I had earned that promotion twice over. But doubt crept in anyway. What if I had kept quiet just a little longer? My phone rang around 8 that evening and I saw my mother's name on the screen. I almost let it go to voicemail, but Amaya nodded encouragingly. "Hey Mom," I answered, trying to sound normal. "Honey, your sister mentioned you had some news at work," she started, her voice already laced with that familiar worry. "Is everything okay?" I hesitated, then told her the truth. "I did not get the promotion, Mom. They said it was because I came out about Amaya." The line went quiet for a long beat. "Oh, Amber," she sighed finally. "You know how the world is. Maybe it would have been smarter to keep that part private for now. Your career is important and people can be so judgmental." I felt my chest tighten. "So you think I should have hidden who I am?" "That is not what I am saying," she replied quickly, "but your father and I just want the best for you. This could affect everything." When I hung up, Amaya rubbed my back gently. "They will come around." But as I lay in bed that night staring at the ceiling, I wondered if anyone would. The next morning I woke with a fire in my belly. I was not going to let this slide without a fight. I headed back to the office, determined to talk to Human Resources and lay out exactly how unfair this was. Little did I know that conversation would only be the beginning of the storm. By the time I reached the Human Resources floor the next morning, my resolve had hardened into something sharp and unyielding. I had spent the night drafting emails and noting every performance review that proved my value, yet all I could think about was Linda's cold dismissal. The HR director, a woman named Karen in her 50s, listened with a polite nod as I laid out my case, but her eyes held the same careful distance I had seen in Linda. "Amber, we take these matters seriously, but the promotion decision was based on a holistic view of team fit," she explained, sliding a folder across her desk. Holistic. That word felt like a slap. I pressed harder, citing company policy on inclusion. But Karen just repeated the party line about client preferences and business needs. By the time I left her office, I knew nothing would change internally. Back on my floor, Sarah, my supposed work best friend, caught me at the coffee station. Her blonde ponytail swung as she leaned in, eyes wide with fake concern. I heard about the promotion. I am so sorry, Amber. You deserved it way more than Mark. I wanted to believe her. She had been the one who encouraged me to come out at the retreat, saying the team would support me. But something in her tone felt off. Thanks, I muttered, pouring my coffee black. Then she dropped it. You know, some people are saying you kind of brought this on yourself by making it so public. My hand froze mid-stir. What people? She shrugged, glancing around. Just talk. Clients talk too. I walked away without answering, but the seed of doubt she planted grew fast. Was she right? Had my honesty been reckless? The rest of the day dragged with sideways glances and sudden silences when I entered meetings. I pushed through, finalizing a major campaign, but every approval email felt tainted. When I got home, Amaya had cooked my favorite pasta and set the table with candles, trying to lift the mood. How was it, she asked as we ate. Brutal, I admitted. HR is useless, and now even Sarah's acting weird. Amaya reached across the table, her fingers brushing mine. You are stronger than this place, Amber. Maybe it is time to look elsewhere. I wanted to agree, but the thought of starting over terrified me. We had just signed a lease on a bigger place, planning for the future, the one where my director's salary would let us travel and maybe even think about a family someday. That night we lay tangled together, her head on my chest, and for a moment the world outside faded. But sleep would not come. My mind kept circling back to my mother's words and Sarah's hint. The following weekend my parents drove in from the suburbs for dinner, unannounced as usual. Mom hugged me tight, Dad gave Amaya a stiff nod, and we all sat around the table with takeout Thai. Halfway through the meal, Mom cleared her throat. So about that promotion situation. I set my fork down. It is not a situation, Mom, it is discrimination. Dad shifted uncomfortably. Honey, companies have to think about the bottom line. Maybe you can talk to them about keeping things low-key. Low-key, I echoed, my voice rising. You mean hide Amaya? Hide us? Amaya stayed quiet, but I felt her tense beside me. Mom reached for my hand. We love you both, we do. But the world is not always kind, and we do not want you to suffer. The argument escalated, fast voices overlapping until Dad slammed his palm on the table. Enough. Think about your future, Amber, not just tonight. When they left, the apartment felt smaller, the air thick with unsaid things. Amaya and I cleaned up in silence, then she turned to me, eyes glistening. I hate that they make you question us. I pulled her close, swearing I would not let them win. But inside the pressure was building like a dam ready to crack. Monday brought the next blow. During a team huddle, Linda announced Mark's promotion officially, and Sarah clapped the loudest, her eyes avoiding mine. Later in the break room, Sarah cornered me again. Look, I hate to say it, but maybe you should consider transferring departments. Some clients mentioned they prefer working with Mark now. The betrayal stung deeper than I expected. She had been my ally, now she was feeding the very prejudice that cost me everything. I went home that evening and told Amaya everything, the words tumbling out in a rush. She listened, then said softly, maybe we need to make a plan B. I nodded, but the fear of losing the life we had built clawed at me. That night I lay awake again, weighing every choice, the price of staying true to myself versus the cost of silence. The tension was rising, and I knew the breaking point was close. The breaking point came faster than I expected. 3 days after the team huddle, I received an anonymous email with screenshots of internal chats where Sarah had forwarded my coming out story to clients with comments like, "Hope this does not affect our numbers." The betrayal burned hot and deep. I printed everything, marched straight to Linda's office, and slapped the pages on her desk. "This is what your holistic decision looks like," I said, my voice shaking with rage. She scanned the pages, her face paling slightly, but she recovered quickly. "Amber, this is unfortunate, but it does not change the promotion." I quit on the spot, typing my resignation letter right there on her computer while she watched, speechless. Walking out of Horizon for the last time felt like shedding a skin that had grown too tight. Freedom mixed with terror as I drove home, the city skyline blurring through tears. Amaya met me at the door, her arms wrapping around me before I could speak. "You did it," she whispered. "I'm so proud." We spent the evening on the couch making lists of next steps, her practical mind already calculating savings and possible freelance gigs. But as the days turned into weeks, the reality hit hard. Job applications went unanswered or received polite rejections that felt coded. One interviewer even said off the record that word travels fast in Chicago advertising. My savings dwindled and the new lease felt like a noose. Amaya picked up extra photography shoots, working late into the night, her eyes tired but her smile always there for me. One evening, after a particularly brutal day of silence from recruiters, I snapped at her over nothing. "Why are you not angry?" I demanded. "Because someone has to believe we will be okay," she replied calmly. Her steadiness only made my guilt sharper. I had dragged us into this and now she was paying the price with exhaustion and worry. The societal judgment crept in too. At the grocery store, an old neighbor from my childhood spotted us holding hands and turned away without a word. Online forums I lurked in for industry advice were full of threads warning against being too out at work. I started questioning everything. Had my principles been worth this? Then came the lawsuit idea. A friend from law school suggested I had a strong discrimination case, and for a week I obsessed over it, gathering evidence late into the night. Amaya supported me, but I saw the fear in her eyes at the thought of court battles and public scrutiny. In the end, I could not pull the trigger. Dragging Horizon through the mud might win money, but it would keep me tied to the pain. Instead, I decided to build something new. I launched a small consulting site offering strategy sessions for brands that actually valued diversity. The first few clients were tiny, paying barely enough for groceries, but each win felt like proof I could survive on my own terms. Still, the nights were long with Amaya asleep beside me, while I stared at the ceiling calculating how much longer we could last. Family pressure mounted too. Mom called weekly, now her voice softer but the message the same. "Come home for dinner, we miss you." Translation: "We want you to reconsider." During one visit, Dad pulled me aside. "Pride is good, Amber, but so is stability. Your mother cries about this." I left that dinner with a heavy heart, wondering if holding on to my truth meant losing them forever. Amaya and I grew closer through it all, our quiet evenings on the balcony talking dreams and fears, strengthening the bond. Yet the strain showed in small ways, her canceling a weekend trip because money was tight, my snapping over bills. One morning I woke to find her already up, sketching at the kitchen table. "I love you," she said without looking up. "But I need you to believe we are in this together, not just fighting ghosts." Her words hit home. I had been so focused on the betrayal and loss that I almost forgot the future we were fighting for. Quitting had been the right choice, but rebuilding would test every part of me. The internal war raged on, but slowly a new resolve took shape. I would not go back, but I would move forward stronger, even if it cost me everything along the way. Months blurred into a rhythm of hustle and small victories that kept us afloat. My consulting business grew from 3 clients to 12 as word spread among progressive startups in the loop. I landed a contract with a local nonprofit that paid enough to cover rent, and even allowed Amaya to cut back on gigs. Success tasted sweet, but every pitch meeting carried the shadow of old doubts. Would they Google me and see the quiet rumors from Horizon? Would my identity still be a liability? Amaya celebrated each win with homemade dinners and late-night talks on our tiny balcony overlooking the park. Her photography portfolio was gaining traction, to a gallery show coming up that filled our apartment with prints of Chicago streets at dawn. One evening, after signing a decent contract, I surprised her with tickets to a concert we had dreamed about. We danced in the crowd, hands linked, and for the first time in months the weight lifted. "This is us," she shouted over the music. Unapologetic. The high did not last. Family silence turned into a surprise visit from Mom, alone this time. She sat at our kitchen table clutching her purse. "Your father thinks we should give you space, but I cannot." "Honey, take the high road. Maybe reach out to Horizon and see if they will reconsider." The suggestion landed like a stone in my gut. Reconsider? After everything? I stood up, pacing. "Mom, you are asking me to beg the people who punished me for loving Amaya." She teared up. "I am asking you to think about your life." Amaya watched from the doorway, her face calm, but I knew she was hurting too. After Mom left, Amaya and I argued for the first time in weeks. "Maybe she has a point about stability," she said quietly. "Not going back," I snapped, "but maybe I am pushing too hard." The words hung heavy. We made up that night, wrapped in each other, but the crack remained. My own internal conflict deepened during a big presentation for a potential client. Midway through, one executive asked casually about my previous role at Horizon. I froze for a split second, then answered honestly. "I left because of differing values on inclusion." The room shifted, and though I won the account, the questions lingered in my mind. Had honesty cost me bigger deals? Amaya noticed my distraction and pulled me into a weekend getaway to a cabin up north. No phones, no pressure, just us hiking trails and cooking over a fire. Under the stars, she traced patterns on my arm. You have grown so much, Amber. Do not let them dim that light. Her faith in me sparked something new. I started mentoring young queer professionals online, sharing my story without names, but with raw truth. The responses poured in, women who had faced the same doors closing, and it reminded me why I had come out in the first place. Yet the price kept showing. Old friends from college faded away after awkward coffee meetups where they avoided mentioning Amaya. My savings account recovered slowly, but the emotional toll showed in sleepless nights where I replayed every confrontation. One afternoon, Sarah emailed out of the blue. Hey, just checking in, heard you are doing consulting. Want to grab coffee? I almost deleted it, but curiosity won. At the cafe, she apologized half-heartedly, claiming she had been under pressure from Linda. I listened, but when she hinted at inside info on Horizon clients, I shut it down. No more games, Sarah. Walking away from that meeting, I felt lighter. Betrayal had taught me boundaries. Back home, Amaya and I talked about the future seriously. She wanted to get married someday, a small ceremony with those who truly supported us. I hesitated, not from doubt but from fear that my instability would ruin it. She took my hands. We pay prices every day, Amber. But together we make them worth it. That conversation marked a turning point. I threw myself into expanding the business, hiring a part-time assistant, and landing my biggest contract yet. The money helped, but the real win was the confidence returning. Family ties strained further when Dad sent a text saying he was proud but needed time. I cried that night, but Amaya held me until the tears stopped. Through it all, our love deepened into something unbreakable, forged in the fire of judgment and choice. I was awakening to my own strength even as new challenges loomed on the horizon. The past was not done with me yet. The letter arrived on a rainy Tuesday, exactly 1 year after the promotion denial. I almost tossed the Horizon envelope thinking it was junk, but the return address made my heart stutter. Inside was an offer for regional director covering the Midwest with a salary that made my eyes widen, and a note from the new CEO expressing regret over past decisions, and citing my recent industry buzz as the reason they wanted me back. I sat at the kitchen table staring at the pages for a full hour. Amaya found me there and read it over my shoulder, her breath catching. Wow. What are you going to do? I did not know. Part of me wanted to laugh in their faces, the same company that had cast me aside now crawling back because my independent success threatened their market share. Another part whispered about security, the chance to provide for us without scraping by. The dilemma tore at me for days. I replayed every hurt, the boardroom, slapped, the family tears, Sarah's knife in the back. Accepting felt like forgiveness I was not ready to give. Refusing felt like pride that could starve us. Amaya and I talked it through over long walks along the lake. She was torn too. I want you happy and safe, she said one evening as waves lapped the shore. But not at the cost of who you are. Her words echoed my own fears. Meanwhile, family suddenly resurfaced. Mom called excited about the news somehow she had heard through the grapevine. This could fix everything, Amber, she urged. Your father agrees, it is a sign. Their support felt conditional, tied to the paycheck, and it stung. I confronted them over dinner. So now that they want me back, you are on board. Dad looked away. We just want you stable. The argument left me raw. That night I journaled for hours, listing pros and cons until my hand cramped. Pros: stability, impact from inside, change for others. Cons: losing the freedom I had fought for, validating their prejudice. The internal battle raged alongside external ones. I met with a mentor who advised take it and reshape the culture from within. But another queer leader in my network warned it would be a trap. The pressure built until I could not sleep. Amaya noticed and suggested a quiet night in with no talk of the offer. We watched old movies, her head on my lap, and in that peace I felt the weight of every choice I had made. The price of my awakening had been high: lost friendships, strained family, mental scars. Yet it had also brought clarity. I was no longer the woman who hid. When a second letter arrived with even better terms, including diversity initiatives, I had to decide. I scheduled a meeting with the CEO, neutral ground, at a downtown cafe. Walking in, I saw Linda there too, her expression sheepish. The conversation was tense but honest. We made mistakes, Amber, the CEO admitted. We want to do better and we believe you can lead that. I left without committing, but the seed was planted. Back home, Amaya waited, her eyes searching mine. Whatever you choose, I am with you. In that moment, with her hand in mine, I felt the pieces align. The offer was not just a job, it was a chance to face my past head-on. But the real question remained, would stepping back into that world strengthen me or break what I had rebuilt? The decision loomed large, but I was no longer afraid of the cost because I finally knew my worth. I accepted the offer with conditions written in bold. Diversity training mandatory for all executives and a public apology from the company for past practices. The CEO agreed, surprising even me, and within weeks I was back in the familiar building, but this time as regional director with an office overlooking the river. The first month tested every resolve. Linda reported to me, now her discomfort obvious in every meeting. Sarah avoided me entirely, transferring departments after I made it clear her role in the leaks had not been forgotten. I implemented changes, slowly hiring more diverse talent and reshaping client pitches to value authenticity over image. The work felt meaningful, yet each victory carried echoes of old wounds. Amaya supported me fully, attending the welcome event, where I spoke openly about my journey. Her presence grounded me when board members whispered. Family dynamics shifted too. Mom and Dad attended a company dinner, looking proud for the first time in years. "We are happy for you," Dad said quietly. But I reminded them gently that my happiness had never needed their approval, only their love. The conversation healed some rifts, though scars remained. Through it all, the price stayed visible. Late nights left Amaya waiting up, worry lines around her eyes. She had put her gallery dreams on hold to be there for me. And I saw the sacrifice in her quiet support. One evening, after a grueling day of pushback on new policies, I came home to find her sketching at the table. "I love the woman you are becoming," she said, "but I miss our quiet life sometimes." Her honesty forced me to confront the trade-off. Had I gained power only to lose balance? The climax came during a major client retreat. An old executive cornered me, pushing back on inclusion metrics. "This woke stuff is costing us," he grumbled. I stood tall, meeting his gaze. "This stuff is why I am here and why the company is growing again. Walk away if you cannot handle it." He backed down, and in that moment I felt the full circle. The woman who had been denied was now setting the rules. That night, Amaya and I celebrated on our balcony with wine and city lights. She leaned into me, her laugh soft. "You did it, Amber." "We did," I corrected, pulling her close. The kiss under the stars reminded me why every hard choice had been worth it. Yet as months passed and the company transformed, I still carried the weight of the original betrayal. Success had come, but at the cost of trust in systems and people. My awakening was complete. I knew my value and refused to shrink again. In the end, was taking their offer justice served, or the ultimate compromise of the principles that got me here in the first place? What would you have done?